But I'll give you my take. The hope is that there'll be some things that you can take home to your own perspective from what I'm able to talk about today. I hope I have enough time to do justice to some of the comments. The most important comment is to acknowledge the hosts, my hosts here, and the co-conveners, and the fabulous job that you've all done. Putting up this meeting, it's not easy, a lot of work behind the scenes. Thank you so much. And to the Pakistani people, our condolences, of course, for the great troubles that people are experiencing in the South right now. So this component of the World Health Organization has certain principles that they emphasize, and I thought these words are meaningful when we think about the work of PSR and the Arthritis Care Foundation and the rheumatologists in Pakistan. It really starts with motivation and certainly other types of things that come with wisdom. Resilience during the pandemic, of course, has been a huge factor in thinking globally and acting globally. Requires a lot of flexibility, problem solving, even ethical thinking, and then finally collaboration and being dependable, showing up. We had in the States the healthcare workers who were not able to show up. They lost their resiliency, and to them, our sympathies. To those that did show and keep showing, well done. So the objectives of my talk have to do with trying to clarify local priorities and opportunities. So as I go through these comments, you can keep that in mind a little bit. That your personal consciousness influences your experience. And really importantly, I think, to inspire a shared sense of purpose in rheumatologic care for our patients. This specialty certainly crosses borders. Unlike the border I was at yesterday on the Pakistan and India border, a lot of fun yesterday watching the border activities. But really, rheumatology, we share all the same basic needs. I'm not going to be talking about structured education in this talk, or research development, or even publication. All of these things have very strong global, local connotations, particularly publication, because of publication bias. Instead, we really emphasize sort of, symposia and international educational efforts that you all have been involved with, and I have as well. I'll be touching on a few of my own personal experiences, and then some of the broader viewpoints. So, some of you know Jim Katz, formerly of the NIH. This is a fantastic editorial that he wrote, basically emphasizing the importance of medical education in medical care. Really, things start with medical education, then it moves to diagnosis, diagnostic accuracy, diagnostic efficiency, diagnostic affordability, and then it moves to therapy. So this issue really emphasizes the importance of the medical education piece. Basically, a doctor is a teacher. You're a teacher of your patient, you're a teacher of each other, sometimes a teacher of yourself, and we need to keep that in mind. Thinking globally, so the English metaphysical poet John Donne, who said, "No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, part of the main. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am the fault of mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee." I think this is appropriate for climate change, consciousness, and other things. So sustainability is the whole idea of taking your global perspective back home to where you actually work, to your real life. And there's a lot of heterogeneity in our experiments, including within our countries as well as across the globe. And so trying to establish some sort of framework to address that is emphasized in this paper. IMAR, as many of you know, is a collaboration between many different rheumatologic organizations, and they have a granting process to promote globally based on people's local understandings. So they have this mission statement, the same entitles the talk, to try to understand that even with minimal resources, lots of progress can be made. In the United States, we have an abundance of resources and nevertheless a huge problem. You could even call it a crisis in the healthcare system. How could that be? How can you have so much and still have crisis? So this Gallup poll recently showed a pretty substantial and worrisome drop in the confidence of the public in the health care that we provide them. So the paper basically points out that the patient care experience matters. It's not just the technology. The cost of care, of course, is an issue in the U.S., $5,000 a month for a total citizen. It's an issue in the U.S. It's a global issue and a local issue. And certainly health literacy is a problem, and access to care is a problem in our country. These are the take-home points for this one particular person's perspective on what we need to be doing better in the U.S., which is to emphasize critical thinking skills, diagnostic reasoning skills, management reasoning skills, not just the availability of technology and therapeutics, but also how to use them wisely. And this requires a communication skill. So 3 questions. How might global awareness inform your own teaching and medical practice? First question. What can you learn from the similarities between your reality and someone else's reality? What can you learn from the differences? Sometimes the similarities are a more important teacher. Can this awareness clarify what's absolutely necessary? For example, the doctor's black bag, what goes in it? You know, who has a black bag anymore? No hands up. Who has an iPhone in your pocket? All hands up. So this is the black bag. Is this adequate? I mean, up to date, pretty good. Google searching is, I think, the #1 way medical students find information on the words. Pretty good, this is the black bag. But, you know, it has some issues. What's absolutely necessary, what's excessive? What about lab tests? What are the 5 best rheumatologic lab tests? Don't say ANA, because the ANA's got a lot of issues. Don't say rheumatoid factor, don't say HLA-B27, don't say ANCA, don't say, but maybe CUC, maybe urinalysis. How about CPK? How about a metabolic panel? So, you know, what's in the black bag and what's extra? It depends on your local perspective. Maybe you need some clinical decision support in your pocket. I use up-to-date a lot. The problem is the outcome. So if you start out with disorientation, diagnostically, or say you're in Lahore and you're going to the old city and you don't know where you are, you're not having a good time until you know where you are. So the iPhone can help orient us to where we are, and then we can move forward. So I think it is an essential help as well. Second question. How do the features of early disease versus late disease influence our thinking, our diagnostic reasoning, our priorities, our challenges? For example, in the U.S., we now have patients coming to see us, you know, before you can even diagnose them. They're coming in so early. In Switzerland, a friend of mine, Axel Fink, is spending his entire academic life looking at pre-rheumatoid. This is rheumatoid without rheumatoid, genetic rheumatoid. So, you know, at some point, there's a practicality. In late presentation, you have the opposite sort of problem. So anyway, some global awarenesses influence our thinking that way. I was in Kolkata one time and went to a dermatology clinic with a couple of the American internal medicine residents, and there was a queue, I don't know, 100 people in the queue, and the dermatologist was diagnosing them like this, you know, with their sari on, you know, just lifting a little piece of the clothing here and there and making a rapid diagnosis. So, you know, you can deal with your load, your cue, by just thinking fast, if you're experienced. You know, if you're not experienced, you've got to be careful. So there's this dual process thing, fast and slow. That guy's fast, that's just one. It's memory-based. We call those illness scripts. He's seen about 1,000 times in Kolkata. He knows his epidemiology. He knows his hallmarks. It's very intuitive. It's based on experience. Then there's slow thinking. This is for students, but also for us. If we're out of the context that we're familiar with, we have to slow down. So, you practice locally. When you're thinking globally, you have to consider these fast and slow ideas in your participation. Third question, what about the risk of isolationism that's going on in the world right now with the Ukraine crisis? These things influence our understandings. They get in the way a lot of equity and other types of things. So, thinking globally is certainly important for that. Here's just a quick little story. My plane took off from Qatar a few years ago, and I flew straight over to Iran, where I'm not allowed to go, or I'm told I shouldn't go. But Iran has a flourishing rheumatologic society, and where are they? Where are the Russians? This is over Shiraz. My brother was born in Tehran in 1965. So I'm interested in this place. And Dr. Sammy Spellman, he's interested in some places too. So we get together and we have some philosophical conversations about these things. So, to get inside your own thinking, you gotta go outside your own box, and vice versa. So this is a scientific thing. You basically discover stuff. And you use medical practice, an art of discovery, of course. This metacognition idea that you think about your own thinking, recognize your own needs, it leads to innovation. And of course, collegiality is what makes life sweet. So anyway, there's lots of ways to view this global, local thing. You can even view it within yourself. Yourself and then the other. You can view it within your team, right? Within your own team, you have a local and global issue. There's, of course, the rural and the urban, which differs where you are. The country, perhaps, routine exception, easy mark, etc. So C minus L equals M. This is how you figure out what your margin is. This is where you get your energy. If you have too big of a load, you lose your energy. If your capacity is too great, if your capacity is too low, you have to train enough rheumatologists or something, you run out of energy. So in parts of Africa, the healthcare provider person is 50,000 to 1. Where I live, we don't talk about that. We talk about rheumatologist per person, not just healthcare worker. I'm in the top left corner here of the country, and you can see off to the right, there's a lot of beige color. That's where there's no rheumatologist, and the population has to travel long distances, so it's sound like Pakistan. So we have some of the same types of issues. This is in my area, Portland, maybe 1 or 2 to 4 rheumatologists per 100,000. But in Pakistan, according to your local authors, Saira Khan and her colleagues, less than 4 rheumatologists per 10 million estimated. So there's reasons for the poor margin in the United States. Some of these things, I think, haven't come to your shores. They may wash ashore here one day if you're not careful. Perverse payment systems, too much administration, wasting all the healthcare dollars, not getting the patient correctly. How about test overuse, drug overpricing, diagnostic misdirection, even too much specialization, too much referral. We now have patient-centered care that creates a lot of load for us. Our parking lots are full. We're spending half an hour with each patient sometimes, just trying to do the shared decision-making stuff. It's really time-consuming. So I'm not going to go through too many of those details for the sake of our time. And our patients have changed, particularly in the West. This review of 12 studies shows that the objective features of disease have really improved, which is great, until you're trying to diagnose people. But subjective traits have increased from limbic stress and other things. People are in pain, people are fatigued, people are worried. this overlay on all the rheumatic diseases. Fibromyalgia is incredibly common in all of the rheumatic diseases. So you got to know your local margins. You know, we've talked about some of these, but on your side, here in Pakistan, I can ask you, what are your what is your capacity, what's your load, what's your margin? We've had presentations on that topic here this week. We have some shared challenges. Other NCDs are sometimes prioritized a lot, more so than ours. These NCDs are having a bigger and bigger impact as infectious disease come under control. And of course, there's inadequate public health spending there. Difficulty scaling things up. Teachers are getting tired. Doctors are burning out. And sometimes we think too fast and sometimes we think too slow. Here's a paper, again, from the local Lahori rheumatology community, basically saying you have to train up other people. You can't do all of this yourself. And that's one of the visions of the PSR, is to bring rheumatology education to everyone, to improve how people do their reasoning in the clinic. This was an IRA grant I shared with Axel Fink in Geneva. We brought Vitya Kuhn on the left there to Geneva to get the EU certificate in rheumatology. There aren't too many rheumatologists in Cambodia. Very similar situation, but even behind Pakistan for sure. This was an ILO grant I had in Kenya to introduce a clinical decision support methodology. This is something I'm going to touch on briefly before I conclude today. There's a paper or two on this topic. Basically, we're a teacher-teacher program, and the downside of these things, of course, is you're exporting yourself to a country that's happy to have you come, but then what are the practicalities? I'm thinking, and I'm under the impression that clinical decision support is a universal ideal, and this is a website that my son built for me, for my purposes. It's an open access website you can put on your phone right now if you want. There's a PDF you can download. Here's Vera Ganda on the left. She's a consultant in rheumatology trained in Durban for Hirsch Modi. But this was before that, when she was just when she was an internal medicine specialist, yet to be a rheumatologist. She was one of the attendees. On the right is a new NCD center in Eldoret, Kenya, where Moi University is located. So NCDs are coming up, and the need is coming up. In contrast, in 1997, I was in the same town during the AIDS epidemic. 1/3 of our inpatient census died every single day, most of them young adults, most of them from miliary TB in the context of HIV. There was, the student context there was HIV. But now, when I went back the last time in 2015, the context had changed dramatically. They were really eager to learn rheumatology, cardiology. They already were getting oncology. They were even getting their pros at infectious disease. But rheumatology and some of the clinical reasoning skills was very much still in development there. A couple of these Kenyan medical students came to our home in Portland. And this is the best, think global, act local, or vice versa, if you want to say, context, is when you yourself travel, and you yourself go someplace. And these guys, we took them up in Mount Hood, they found some old board and started trying to ski, in the middle of the summer, with one of my kids and my wife in the background there, many years ago. But, the student perspective matters because they come home. They're young, they come home and they apply it to where they are. This is a local thing that I did in my clinic in Portland, in a rural setting with family practitioners, looking at Obamacare. How are we going to improve quality? How are we going to reduce costs? These are things that are going on right now in Pakistan. Addressing, and these are my final points, addressing the nature of uncertainty, because uncertainty gobbles up time, gobbles up money, gobbles up tests, causes patients to be stressed. They want to know what's going on. If we don't tell them, they're going to go find answers somewhere else. So this idea of cognitive overload and limited time, getting uncertainty addressed is really part of what my work has been on and what the website tries to address. Because we can't remember everything. You don't have enough time on the planet to get all the illness scripts in your head, and then you have to remember those, and then you have to compare and contrast them with every single patient. So when you get experience, you get quick, like the dermatologist in Kolkata. But even that guy's going to miss stuff. So you got to slow down and do that system 2 stuff, and have some backup. So to make the obvious statement, we have to do some control. Here's the website. It's basically saying you got to start out with knowing what's possible. If you come to Lahore and you want to see the sites, someone should give you a little handout that says, here's what's possible. And then you can pick and choose on there. But otherwise, it's going to be a hunt and peck thing, and you might miss something great. It starts out with what's possible, and then it moves from there to reasoning and what's probable. What's possible, followed by what's probable. And after that, and only after that, testing and thinking of that sort. What I found is that, patient care is a coin with 2 sides to it. One side is empathy, understanding people, being gentle, understanding reality. And the other side is function, like, helping people figure things out. And some of that is very clinical. So anyway, this is just, I'm going to skip this, I think, just because of the objectives of the study that I did in Oregon with these family practitioners. 7 of them across the bottom, provider number 1 through 7 on the bottom. So what's their interest? High. These are mid-career family doctors. Their interest is high. They didn't say, Dan, go find some students. These are mid-career people, presently. If we ask them to compare our subspecialty to cardiology and other things, ours is harder. So, what you guys are doing here in Markstown is super meaningful. It applies where I am. What about these family doctors' ability to distinguish between things that we, with experience, find not that difficult? They find it very difficult. All of these patients can't come to us. They have to be taken care of by other people. So we have to work on those things. So just to wrap it up, think global and local within your own context, understand the margin, try to see how you can understand that margin in a resource-dependent as well as a resource-independent way. And don't forget to savor the good things while you're working so hard, because it is hard work. And of course, there's enjoyment in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel Seger. Our last speaker of the session is Professor Dr. Terence Gibson, who is currently an acute physician and consultant rheumatologist at King's College Hospital, London. Sir will come and speak on the question, should I call a rheumatologist? Kindly please come on stage.